Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. Really important game for this USC women's basketball team on Sunday in Minneapolis against Minnesota. It's a quality opponent on the road. That's enough to, underscore the importance of the game, but also turning the page from Oregon and learning the right lessons and taking a step forward. Like that is a real opportunity in front of this team. Because if like USC can go to Minnesota, figure this thing out, like that would be a major, major confidence boost. I mean, the win would look good on the resume, but also just the positive vibes that could come from a win in this particular situation. Back at you with USC women's basketball analyst CC Clay of the USC Women's Basketball Media Lab. CC,
What's
foremost
up?
thoughts going into Minneapolis.
This is going to be an interesting game because Minnesota, they are a paint dominant team, and they're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. So again, we're going to have our work cut out for us, and we're going to have to gang rebound and show that we can bang in the paint with this team.
So that's where you think this game really begins and ends. You talk about made shots and you talk about players being able to attack, but rebounding would be your first priority.
Yeah, and it's going to be a tough game because 54% of their points come in the paint. And so they're not worried if they miss their first shot. They're really not because they're confident that they can get the offensive rebound and put it back in the bucket. So that's why rebounding is so important for us in this game. And if you look at their resume, if you look at their four losses, I mean they had that double overtime loss by 1 point to Maryland, and Maryland is out some folks, some major pieces, but still, they stuck with Maryland. They lost to Michigan, and they lost to a couple other teams that, are real formidable teams. So this is going to be a true test for us.
Now, having mentioned the importance of rebounding and specifically Minnesota's belief, hey, a missed shot is not bad offense for us, thinking about it from the Golden Gophers perspective, because we'll just go to the backboard and grab the miss. That tells me, CC, forcing turnovers is also really important for USC, because if you force turnovers, they can't attempt shots and get them back on the glass.
Yeah, a couple things. We have to force turnovers and we have to get out fast on Minnesota because Minnesota thrives on setting up their defense, and that's when they're best. When they can set up their defense, they're really good. But if we can get out fast on them and speed up the pace, that's to our advantage.
And this brings up a point, Cece, not so much about the Minnesota game in microcosm, but about the season more generally. We've talked about on multiple occasions that USC is a matchup dependent team. Get USC in the wrong matchup, it can get ugly. We saw that against UCLA. Get this team in the right matchup, and I mean, Oregon was a generally favorable matchup. And we saw in the first three quarters, USC matched up well with Oregon. Just let that game slip away in the fourth. But as much as we do like to talk about matchup specifics, what's your general read in terms of how Lindsey Gottlieb and this team have managed pace and tempo? Have they been running enough this season? Like this is a macro thing, not particular to Minnesota or particular to the Oregon game that we just saw. How would you broadly assess pace and tempo and how this team has managed that part of basketball over the course of the season?
I think they try and push the pace when they can. You know what I mean? That's their identity, especially Jazzy. If Jazzy gets the rebound, she's gone down the court. So I think they're still learning their identity when it comes to pushing the paint. But I think for the most part, they've done a good job at the pace that they want to play. It's the other teams that have kind of forced them to be in their game, and USC not really being able to take control back and push the pace at the speed that they want.
And I ask that question about pace because it seems to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you've done it before, you'll do it again, that getting into a faster game might be a way for Jazzy Davidson to shoot at a higher percentage, get some more flow, see the ball go through the basket a little bit more. Do you think that's a really central key for this game for Jazzy in particular to get into the open court and to finish? Because that was a rough shooting night for her against Oregon. Obviously, she's doing all the things that winners do. She rebounds, she plays defense, hustles, all the things that you do and don't see on the box score. But purely in terms of getting her shooting percentage up, maybe a faster paced game is exactly what she needs. What do you think?
I don't want to limit this to Jazzy in general because USC shooting overall has not been the best, but for USC to do what they want to do, they need to, and especially in this game, they need to push pace immediately. They need to get paint touches in transition, and I think that'll help their shooting percentage go up. So this is just not limited to Jazzy Davidson challenge. It's everybody. Everybody wants to push pace on this team and get transition paint points so they can get their percentages up. And it's to USC's advantage to do that. Like I said, if Minnesota wants to slow you down and they want to set their defense, we can't let them do that. We have to force our pace to outrun Minnesota.
All right, now one of the things of the Oregon game that, it was impossible to ignore was Kennedy Smith being absent. So let's go through hypotheticals. If she is playing, if she isn't playing, and how USC's game plan changes based on her availability, and if she is playing, her level of effectiveness coming off her injury.
I haven't heard either way that she's going to be available, so I'm assuming she's not. I'm
Okay.
assuming that she's not going to be playing. So I think they're going to have to adjust like they did in the Oregon game. It'll be interesting to see again who Lindsay decides to start at the five position, and if she's going to start London and Malia together again like she did before, which is probably what she'll do.
Yeah, let's talk about front court before we go to perhaps the backcourt rotation and backcourt options. Do you think that Laura Williams is going to get the majority of minutes? I mean, it's impossible to fully know, but like she certainly earned, I would think, more minutes with the way she played against Oregon. Maybe I could come at you from this angle. Is there anything about the matchup against Minnesota that either recommends her or Gerda or someone else in the front court?
Minnesota has a 6'5" center. So that kind of sums it up right there. She only plays about 23 minutes, and I'm not sure she even starts, but she plays 23 minutes. So she plays a good amount of minutes for their team. So it's going to be, who's ready to bring it as usual on the USC team as far as the front court is concerned. Now, Laura Williams, her ability to block shots and rebound is going to help us, and that might push her into more minutes. I'm assuming, but you know what they say about assuming, right? So
Yep.
it's good just to wait and see what Lindsay's plan of attack is with Minnesota because of the way they play and the way they like to get the ball in the paint.
All right, now in terms of the USC backcourt, CC, against Nebraska in late December, London Jones came alive in the third quarter, and the thing to remember about London Jones, she isn't just experienced; she's Big Ten experienced. She came from another Big Ten program, so it's not just experience. Period. It's she knows the other teams in the conference. She knows what it's like to play within this league. So I'm thinking that you know it's not for every Big Ten game, but for Big Ten road games, and particularly earlier in the conference season, which is where we are in the first half of January. I'm just thinking that right now it might not be the same in mid-February, but right now London Jones on the road in the Big Ten is such an important player for this USC team.
I mean, I would think so, especially if Kennedy's not starting because she has the experience. But we'll see. I mean, Minnesota, they have a different squad. They have a couple key players that got hurt, so it's going to be interesting. They play. They're like UCLA. They have a lot of seniors on their team, so they're they have a very experienced team. But yeah, I would imagine that London, she knows what Minnesota is. She's played against them last year, so I would expect that London Jones tries to put the team on her shoulders and help USC win this game. But to me, it has to be, it's just not about Big Ten play. It's about understanding, again, the reads and how you react to the reads that Minnesota is giving you. I don't care if you played against Big Ten teams or SEC teams. It's just understanding the scout and then playing to the scout, no matter who you're playing. And so I think that's the difference that hopefully we'll see on Sunday.
Now, with Minnesota having a 6'5" big and also being very senior oriented, and we talk about how, you got to make the right read, but just with your basic assessment of Minnesota's personnel, and you've talked again about the attack mentality that this team needs to have. But what do you think the attack angle is going to be? Some games we talk about, got to make your shots to open up the paint. Sometimes it's got to take them off the bounce, just got to be ready to hit them with the dribble drive, and that's part of the game plan. any feel for what like the first line of attack is likely to be for USC against Minnesota?
Again, we have to get out on transition against this team, and we can't let them set up on defense. If we let them set up on defense, it's to Minnesota's advantage because they shrink the paint area. They guard the rim and the paint area very well, and that's to their credit, and that's why they're such a good defensive team. So it's up to us. I mean, we're very athletic. We have more athleticism than they do, so it's our advantage to get out, to force steals, to force turnovers, and to get the ball up and get quick and easy points.
Yeah. Now, if I mean USC is going to have to play some half court offense. Is this a game where like the mid range game is going to be really important? And when talking about the mid range, CC, that's a it can be referred to in a very generic way. For me, mid range is like 12 to 14. I know a lot of people who talk basketball will say 16 or 17 feet is mid range. To me, that's kind of like a long two as opposed to mid range. I'm thinking that, getting within like 12 feet of the basket, maybe you're not able to get all the way to the rim, but, not settling for the long 2 point jumper and getting really into that middle area. If 12 feet is shorter than the free throw line, when USC has to play half court offense, that might be the shot that Trojans across the roster have to be able to make.
Maybe, but like I said, Minnesota likes to stuff the paint, so it's going to be
Yeah.
hard to take that 12 to 15 foot shot. So what I'm thinking is that they got to open the floor. They have to open the floor against Minnesota because they crowd the paint so much. And if they are able to open up the floor and make some 3 pointers and make them come out and respect them, then that opens up the paint area. And then yeah, then we can get in and shoot those 12 to 15 footers. But the key is we have to play on an open floor. I think what you're going to see if we get into flow and that transition isn't open, I think what we're going to see more of tomorrow night is Lindsay calling actions until she can, feel a sense that they're reading the defense correctly.
All right, so with Minnesota's size in the paint, let's flip this to the other end of the floor. When Minnesota has the ball, when USC's playing defense, how many double teams, hedges, weak side help situations are we likely to see? Like how risky would it be to provide interior help and helping off Minnesota's shooters? Like how much of a pick your poison situation does Minnesota pose for USC at that end of the floor? Can USC, you know, basically dare Minnesota to make 3 point shots and pack the paint in its own right? Is that the right way to play it, or does Minnesota have some real snipers who USC can't help off?
They shoot 31% from three, 32% from three, which is where teams kind of, I used to say USC used to need to be at 32% in order to be effective and draw that defense out. So they shoot 31% from three. Their main player is Mara Braun, and she's a 5'11 guard. She's their best 3 point shooter. She can drive the ball. You know what I mean? So it's pick your poison. Like I said, they're not concerned if they miss their first shot
Hmm.
because they feel like if they miss their first shot, they can rebound the ball. That's their mentality.
All right, X factors for USC in this game. You talked about rebounding, and this can be statistical. This can be a player. So, like, we're not doing the statistical benchmarks just yet, but rebounding is front and center. What other key components of this matchup do you have your eye on for Sunday?
And I think they shut down Mara Braun. The other thing that's real important, and I keep saying, is that they have to get out in transition. They have to speed up this game. If they let Minnesota run at their pace and they're able to set up defensively, it's going to be advantage to Minnesota.
So, in terms of a USC player who could make a difference, I mean, I mentioned London Jones earlier, but another player I'm thinking of, especially in light of what you're saying about the need to get steals, Malia Samuels. Like,
Yeah.
she can be a chaos creator on the perimeter with her defense. Seems like she is pretty central to a USC victory here.
Yeah, as far as perimeter defense, you know what I mean, is concerned. But I think Jazzy and Kara are going to have to do the bulk of the load in the paint area and helping with rebounds. Um, they have a size advantage because we if we're starting London and Malia, that's 5'3" and 5'6". They go 6 foot, 6'3", 6 foot, 5'11". And then they come in with 6'5", or sometimes she starts. So they have a clear height advantage as well. So that's going to pose some problems for us. So it's going to be interesting to see how we handle that.
So let me
Because
ask you.
with that height advantage, and we're playing small guards, it shrinks the court even more. It shrinks the paint, and they already, play a lot of sagging in the paint area. So this is just going to be to their benefit. That's why it's crucial that we play transition ball on Sunday.
All right. Now, it's always, people always say it's tough to rebound out of a zone defense, but given Minnesota's size, do you think Beth Burns should throw a little bit of zone at Minnesota and maybe, you kind of key on Braun, but you let the other perimeter wing players, take their threes and you say, hey, this is how you're going to have to beat us, or at least just mix it up enough to perhaps throw Minnesota out of rhythm.
I just want to ask you one question. You ask me about the zone almost every week, right?
Not every
And I
week.
just
I
want to ask
haven't
you
I haven't asked you
almost,
about the
almost,
zone in
but
about three
okay, but
weeks.
I just want to ask you something. I mean, throughout this season, and we know, the challenges that this team has had,
Mhm.
when have you seen them go into a zone?
Not much, but of course,
There's always there's
Without
always
Kennedy
that
Smith, you know,
they would have to practice it. I mean, you know what I mean, to really understand, because
yeah,
zones
yeah,
zones are ran differently than, I
yep,
mean, coaches run zones differently. You can be set up in a 2-3, but your actions off that zone vary from coach to coach, even
absolutely,
in a 1-3-1. So it takes
yep,
time to implement that stuff. I think
yep.
what we might see is more traps on half court, and something like that. But I really don't see them playing zone. But they might surprise me. But I just that's never been a Beth Burns, thing to play zone. I don't really think she likes zone defense. So, and then to have 2 days to put it in place when it's something they don't run. Like I said, different zones. Even if it's a 2-3, it's a basic zone. The actions off that zone could be different within that scheme. So I just think that a lot of people assume that defense, especially zones or man, is just man, or a zone is just zone. And no, it's just like the offense. You can have an offense, but there's different actions within that offense. So I just think that, if we see a zone, I'll be surprised. I don't see it though.
All right, let's get into statistical benchmarks for this game. You focused on rebounding. I'm going to say USC needs to force at least 15 turnovers because if USC's forcing turnovers, it's not only getting in transition. I mean, live ball turnovers. Hopefully most of those 15 are live ball turnovers that go the other way. But even if they're not live ball turnovers, again, Minnesota's not able to get shots up, so Minnesota's not able to crash the offensive glass as much. To me, that seems like a marker that USC needs to reach.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, they shoot 54% of their shots come in the paint. So I think if they can limit their shots in the paint and take them out of their flow, which is paint touches, I think that's to our advantage. So if we can hold them to maybe like 45%, 46%, maybe even 50%, that 4% matters, as far as paint touches are concerned. But we have to limit their paint touches.
All right, anything else you have on this game that you don't want to leave on the cutting room floor?
No, let's go. Let's go, USC. Come on, we got this. We're ready. Let's go.
It's a big one. USC trying to bounce back from the Oregon loss. Once again, it would be a good resume win, circumstances removed. But with the circumstances, a win here really would fill this team with some positive momentum going
And
into the
again,
middle of
hey,
January.
Minnesota is a good team.
They
Let's
are.
not let's
Yes.
not get it twisted. They're a good team.
Almost beat Maryland. Like you
Yeah.
have to
So
be good to do that. Yep.
this is not and plus it's in Minnesota. So I would imagine that people are going to come out and watch this game. By the way, I don't know if you saw the stats, the Nielsen ratings. USC is the third most watched women's basketball program nationally this year, which is surprising since there's no
Without
JuJu.
Juju, yes.
So that says a lot, and that tells me why there's a lot of haters out there, because we're disrupting the
Absolutely.
norm. We are
Absolutely.
disrupting the norm, and I love it.
Yep, it's a great thing that USC's getting that reaction, and that knows that you've arrived and you've established a brand identity. All right, Cece, tell us what you have going on at your USC Women's Basketball Media Lab, your Substack, and your other media involvements.
Yeah, pictures. I was actually editing for the last 15 minutes before I jumped on this call with you. Editing pictures from the Oregon game, and I still have to do the UCLA game, so those will be up on the website tonight. Um, I have two stories on the Media Lab, which I think are phenomenal. One of them is talking about the psychology of the mentality of the game, coming from elite programs versus non-elite programs. And then I just put out a story today, which I'm really proud of because I really took my time, did the research, and it took me some time to write it, but I thought it was necessary. And it's talking about the context and the history of women's basketball and how championship teams are created. So, really good read. I wanted to prove a point because all the naysayers always are not saying the brightest things. I'll put it like that. So I had to educate them on here are the facts. This is what a championship team is. These are the coaches that's done it, and here's who they've done it with. So, really good read. So please go out and read. Please go out and read what I put out on the USC Women's Media Lab blog site. It's called Hoop Thoughts, if you don't know. And also, you can follow me on Twitter at mythoughts0530. I'm also doing the film breakdown tomorrow, so that'll be up tomorrow, Saturday.
Lots of hot takes out there. CC's dropping the cold, hard facts to douse those hot takes. All right, CC. So we will be back with
Oh
you
my God.
after the Minnesota game for a post-game show. And hey, 9 Big 10 women's basketball games on Sunday. So all 18 schools playing on Sunday. It's going to be a full day of hoops. USC, Minnesota, part of the lineup. So can't wait for all the Big 10 action coming on Sunday. So CC and I will
Yes, so
be
if you
with
have
you
my number, don't,
on the other side.
yeah, if you have my number, don't text me because I'm not answering. I might just turn my phone off. So if you text me or if you DM me, don't expect me to respond until probably Sunday evening.
There you go. It's hoop watching day here at Trojans Wired and the USC Women's Basketball Media Lab. So
Let's go, ladies. Let's go. Let's do this.
for CC Clay, this is Matt Zemek. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you after the Minnesota game.
Fight on.